We are live. Thank you so much, Steven Zahurones, for joining me in this Google Hangout where we're going to talk about what your background is, how you got the job that you're in, and what tips you may have for students who are looking to enter the marketing and communications agency or in-house field. My philosophy is that more information is always better, and it's often really a good idea to check with people who have seen success and how students now, especially graduation was just last week, might be able to replicate that. So if you could talk about what your background is, how you got to the job that you're in, and what you're doing right now.
Sure. Yeah, I graduated. Well, first I should say thank you for having me, Suzanne. It was a pleasure to meet you out at SearchLab. So I'm very happy for this opportunity. But yeah, I graduated 2 years ago, actually, I think to the day. Well, actually, today's the day I started my job 2 years ago. But yeah, I graduated 2 years ago with a degree in public relations.
Nice.
And the only job opportunity I had was with a digital marketing agency here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, called Top Rank Online Marketing. And if anybody is familiar with sort of the digital marketing SEO space, they've probably heard of Lee Odden. He is the CEO of the company.
Oh, okay.
But at the time, it was very small. I believe they've grown. I've since left there. But at the time, the team was maybe between 25 and 30 people. And I was brought on as an SEO copywriter, not having much SEO experience in college, not really a field that they explored in my major. As I said, it was public relations. So it was more about press releases and old-fashioned sort of reporting. But I took that position, learned everything I could about SEO, which, as it turns out, is it's a very broad field, and it's very difficult to stay up to date unless you're, of course, naturally curious and always looking up news. After about, I think it was maybe 10 months there or so, 9 or 10 months, I was not sure how much I liked the agency world. So I started looking at other opportunities and found a great one as an SEO specialist with, it just so happened to be another agency, but they were born out of in-house marketing for Rasmussen College here in Minneapolis. So that was Collegiate Education. And as I said, they were born out of in-house marketing. So while they were, I'm sorry, technically they're not an agency. They're a partner that works with higher education institutions, but they operated similar to the agency model. But having only the one major client being Rasmussen College, I was pretty much an in-house SEO specialist with very little other client work. Now, this was a great one because in my previous position, I learned all types of things: content marketing, content planning, SEO copywriting, not so much on the analytics side of things, although I did get Google Analytics certified in my first position.
Cool.
But it was very tactical driven at Top Rank Online Marketing, whereas when I went over to Collegiate, it was very much more strategic and testing and hypothesis validation and looking at data and drawing insights, actionable insights from those data points. So very different, going from tactics to strategy. After pretty much a year at Collegiate, I started to wonder about the advancement opportunities, being that it was sort of a young, new company. Granted, they were backed by having a legacy. I started to wonder about the growth and the opportunity there. And I said, I saw myself as ready to move on and sort of manage SEO for a client or a breadth of clients, whatever the decision would be. And that's when Power Objects, who's my current employer, they are Microsoft Dynamics CRM partner, so very different world than I was used to, very much B2B sort of marketing. They reached out to me and were looking for an SEO guru, and I fell in love with the company. I started looking, researching them online, and it was very helpful to sort of interview and look at all the information and then make an informed decision about what I was getting into. So now I'm 100% in-house. There's no other client work at all. And this is a pretty it is a different world being in-house than it is being in an agency. It's a lot more different than I thought it would be, even with the little amount of client work I was getting at Collegius. And also here I am, or with Power Objects, I am the only person sort of as the designated SEO person.
Yeah.
Although I think the SEO roles are a little bit odd in that you're not really just an SEO. When you think about the field SEO, search engine optimization, and trying to grow the traffic you get to your website from organic search, there's all these factors that go into it. So if you research it, you'll find out that social signals are highly correlated with better ranking, which in turn leads to better traffic or higher traffic. We've got links, which old SEO stand by, on page, topical relevance now in terms of how words are laid out on the page and how search engines understand them, what people are saying about your company, location, personalization, all of these factors. There's many more. I could go on, but SEO is less of a tactical driven field than it was even 2 years ago when I first entered the field. You can certainly still be an SEO specialist and do things like influencer outreach, link building, on-page optimization, keyword research, sort of the old standbys. But I think to truly grow your organic traffic presence, which by the way is typically the largest traffic source to a website,
Right.
you sort of need, as I said, all the different factors. So you need the social vertical, you need the copywriting, the branding, the outreach, the localization. And so then you can have your SEO tactics such as link building, influencer outreach, but SEO is really more of a strategy layer on top of all of those different verticals and tactics that you would use. So it becomes more of like a project management role almost while you're doing your tactics. So with Power Objects, very much a strategy driven role, very much a let's look at the data, let's draw some insights and figure out where we can improve and what we can do better.
That's cool. And what does Power Objects do?
Yeah, so Power Objects is a Microsoft Dynamics CRM partner. So we provide services, support, education, and add-ons to organizations looking to implement Microsoft Dynamics CRM as their CRM system. We won Partner of the Year 2 years in a row in 2012 and 2013. We're a finalist in 2014, but I'm told it's very difficult to win, even just 2 years in a row. So we couldn't lock it up for the third year, but we are experiencing a lot of growth, and it's very exciting to be in the technology space.
Yeah, that is really cool. And did you know anything about customer relationship management systems before you started, and while you were in school?
No, actually, I had no experience with CRM, which, as you said, customer relationship management systems, prior to coming to Power Objects. But that's kind of been a theme throughout my entire career. When I first landed at Top Rank, I didn't really know what SEO was. It turns out I actually did have a job that had me doing a little bit of SEO, but I didn't know that was necessarily even a field back then. And then when I moved over to Collegius, I was never really doing SEO strategy, so that was all new. And then that was also higher education, which I didn't have any of those clients at Top Rank. And then now I'm in CRM, which is again a new venture for me.
Cool. And how did it work out that you ended up at Top Rank?
I think one of the
first job.
Yeah, it was a great first job too. It was a great opportunity to learn a lot with a growing organization. But I think one of the best things students can do throughout their entire college career. So I took a few years off between high school and college just to work and do some other stuff. And then when I went to college, my thought process was, I'm going to be here for 4 years. I want to do everything I can to get a job. That's really all I cared about, was getting a job. So when you sort of make that your focus, it kind of changes, at least for me, how I viewed college. So I was always very focused on, okay, what's the next step now? There's sure these classes that I can take, but from a jobs perspective, from an internship perspective, what's the next step I can take? Where's the next place for me to go? So I originally was going to work in radio. So I had this job at the radio station where I was managing the radio station. It was
Nice.
very fun, very awesome. That grew into, I did some satellite radio work and some other, opportunities with that. But I decided that wasn't really my thing. But I sort of parlayed that right into networking with these people who were in the radio industry, which pretty much any industry can use a communication specialist or a public relations specialist, which is sort of what I was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always about networking and then growing your opportunities. So finding internships or jobs that will allow you to leverage your skill set of what you're learning in your classes.
Mm-hmm.
So from that end, I had, I think maybe two or three internships that I had throughout my 4 years of college. One was at a publication company out in Stevens Point where I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
Another one was with the College of Letters and Science, doing some research again for the publishing world. So that's kind of where I got my start.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to leverage a lot of those relationships into that career. So I had an independent research project with a professor at school. So one of the best things you can do, become friends with your professors. I think that by far is probably the most helpful thing I've ever done. So he was very, very instrumental in helping me become a published writer, first off, because I did the research and published it.
Great.
But also, and so learning that skill, right? Like, how do you research and learn things as you're going? It's a lot different than simply being in the classroom. I was doing the research project. I was on my own. I was researching a topic of my choosing and presenting the findings. The project was social media use by book publishers.
Oh, cool.
So this was back in,
Very relevant.
this was back in, I think, maybe 2010 or 2011. So from that perspective, like, social media was still, I mean, it'd been around, but it was still pretty new, especially for businesses trying to figure it out. So
Especially
I kind of,
old industry too. Like,
oh yeah, very old industry. Yes, they were also, that was a particular time when they were going through a lot of, a lot of issues with, like, how do we get people to buy our books, and people are all switching to electronics, and how we monetize this, and how do we reach them. So it was a very exciting time, and I was able to quantify sort of how should they use social media to their advantage, which is not a big step from public relations. So I thought, well, everybody can write a press release. Like, it's this dirty, I don't understand. School was a little bit weird for me in terms of classes, because we spent a lot of time learning how to write press releases and things, but I felt like that was a skill I could learn on the job if I needed to. So I sort of wanted to branch out, right? Mm-hmm. I thought, well, public relations is great. It's a great field, but there's also this social media thing over here, and that's growing. So I should explore that and help myself. So it's about kind of like expanding what your major or area of focus is. So I did the social media research project, and then, the professor and I, him and I became friends, and he's been able to provide great recommendations for me throughout the years. So that was very helpful. And then the second internship I had with the publishing company, it was very important for me to work very hard at that internship. Well, for one, I wanted a job there. So that was kind of why I went above and beyond. But again, like, if you're working harder than you should while you're at an internship, you're going to get those letters of recommendations. You're going to get the experience. That experience was a lot of editing. But again, this is something that people are looking for. It's a marketable skill. So those letters of recommendations, those skill sets, they all transferred over into the marketing world, which was very helpful. So when I applied to Top Rank, it was one of, I think, 75 applications or resumes that I sent out over the course of about a week. So that's another thing that I think is very valuable. So you get the internship experience, you look at how you can expand beyond just your major. Yeah. So that's why I thought public relations can transfer into kind of advertising, kind of marketing. So let's look at those roles as well and see if I can find something entry level, which I did. But I sent out, I think, around 79 resumes over my spring break. And it's not just about, like, sending your resume out to everybody. It's got to sort of be, like, personalized to that job, right? So it takes a lot of time. But
how'd you do all that?
Right. Well, it was spring break and I wasn't working, so I just spent my week at home doing resume, which, hey, like, if you're a senior and you want to go on spring break and, like enjoy a beach somewhere, that's fine too. But, for me, it was important to, like, I've got graduation coming up in a month or two and I need to have a job. So I sent out all those resumes, all those cover letters. And like I said, I got one call back from Top Rank. So once that happened, it was very, very important for me to study up on what SEO was exactly and how to relate that to my skill set. So as I said before, SEO is a strategy layer on top of social media, link building, content marketing, which is another thing. And it's all kind of related to public relations if you want it to be. Like, public relations is how you communicate your message to the public, and SEO is how do you get your message in front of the people that you want to see it. So it's not that big of a stretch from public relations to SEO, or as I like to call it, digital marketing. I don't even necessarily like to call it SEO because it's so broad.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think it's also important that you started applying for jobs months before you were graduating. What, like 2 months ahead?
Well, I think I sent out my very first application probably like winter break, so 4 or 5 months. That was not necessarily a good idea. I was a little too far ahead in advance, but certainly like 2 to 3 months in advance, you want to be applying for jobs pretty heavily.
Yeah.
I sort of thought like investments to me. It was, I want to diversify my opportunity for a return as much as possible. So if I'm going to send out 80 resumes, there's more chance that one person will respond than if I did 10, just by simple odds.
Right. And this may sound like a strange question, but I'm just curious because I notice, or I recognize that you're using a lot of the terminology that we use in our jobs every day, like return on investment, and I forget what the other thing that you said, but and also your goal was to get a job when you went to college. Now, you knew that, like, kind of going into it, but let's say you don't, you're just sort of figuring it out now. Like, what advice would you have for somebody who's in that position?
Yeah, I mean, I have friends that are in the similar position, right? That they just graduated college. They didn't take the few years off between, so they are just now graduating. They're trying to figure out, where can I even apply my degree? I think it's important to remember that it doesn't necessarily matter as much what your first job is, which is something that I found out, and I think is something that troubles a lot of new graduates, and especially people that are very new in their career, like perhaps at their first place of employment when they're sort of young, like mid to young 20s, is that like your first job isn't going to be your last job, and that's okay. So if you're not sure what you want to do, I definitely recommend like thinking about what your major was and then figuring out all the fields that it could possibly apply to.
Right.
And then just sort of looking at job applications, looking at companies to make sure that you might want to work there, and then just applying to them, because at the end of the day, if you interview with them, you're going to find out if you want to work there or not. But if you're desperate and you just want a job, you can also just, you can work there, but it's not permanent. They can't like hold you there. And I kind of feel like loyalty is a little bit overrated from a new job perspective. And it's probably controversial to say that. I know a lot of people probably disagree with me, but one thing that I thought was very valuable early on in my career, very early, was I sort of figured out that agency world wasn't for me very early on. Like, I knew probably within 90 days of working there. And so I kind of started to look then, but really got serious about 10 months in. But when you're young in your career, you're at an entry-level position, so you're gaining experience a lot faster than somebody who's in their job for 5 years, just by nature of how much you can learn to get up to speed, right? You can learn more in your first year than you can from year 5 to 6 in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're just starting out, it's find out what you could possibly work in, research the industries, and then try to find a job in one of those industries. And then if it doesn't work out, that's okay. Or if a better opportunity comes along, that's okay too. Like, you're young, you should be trying to, grow your personal brand and grow your personal sort of equity and worth as much as possible. And
Right.
so
Especially that
that was,
year.
oh, that for that first year, yeah, extraordinary important. So when I was applying for jobs, like I would see a lot of 1 to 2 years experience, 2 to 3 years experience. And then of course there's the ones that are like 5+ years.
Yeah.
Well, you can't obtain those for a long time, but you can certainly apply to the jobs that require 1 to 2 years of experience and make an argument that college gave you the 1 to 2 years of experience.
Right.
Also, if you find an entry level one that doesn't require experience, well, you're gonna like learn so much so quickly that you'll be able to apply to those other jobs that required a couple years of experience that maybe you wanted before, and you can get that really quickly by working, whatever your first job is, and then applying to the jobs that you really would be happy with.
Right. And I think it's really crucial to, when you're in that job, right, to really make the most of it, to, like you said, invest in your personal brand and take opportunities to really learn and expand your skill set. I'm just curious, how did you know, or what were some indicators to you that the agency world was not really what you thought it was, or was not really for you?
Right. There are a couple things very early on that I could tell were going to not be a good fit for me personally with the agency world. And it's weird now looking back on it because now I'm fully in-house. I'm like, well, I kind of maybe miss the agency world a
I
lot, but
remember
it's always
you saying that.
right. It's the whole concept of the grass is always greener on the other side. But when I was working with Top Rank, the issue I ran into a lot was um, I wasn't really able to enjoy the clients as much because I was spread so thin across a number of clients. So for example, if we had a B2C company that I was doing their SEO or digital marketing for, their content marketing, um, I could only spend maybe 5 to 10 hours a week on their work. And then I would have to shift to maybe a B2B focused client or a tech client or hospitality. There's just a lot of clients that I had, and it was partly exciting, but again, after a couple months in, I realized, well, I kind of enjoy really digging in and really getting to know the client. So I picked like a favorite client that I had, and I started to work with them more than I should have probably. But I mean, you all get paid, so. But it was like the breadth of clients was a little bit too wide for me, and I didn't feel like I was able to really dig in and invest and do like great quality work for them from a digital marketing perspective, really know their messaging and know their customers. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was, you'll hear a lot of people discuss how fast paced the agency world is, but also like work hard, play hard. That's something that almost every agency I've ever come across says they do. And it's mostly true, but you work really hard and it's really fast paced. That's not to say I'm not a fan of hard work. I certainly am. But like to work under the gun, to know you have just an hour to do this project, and if it takes longer you might have to build a client more, and it's all these issues. I was running into issues with like being able to produce what I felt like was quality work in the amount of time, because so some agencies will try to bill less hours and fit more work into that amount of time, which of course makes good business sense. So yeah, I mean, I ran into the issue of kind of like burning myself out super quickly, but part of that may have been due to like my desire to do well and to grow super quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So that is actually one piece of advice I would offer for anybody new to a career, is to be very conscious of if you're burning yourself out, right? I saw there's a couple people who worked at Top Rank who were very conscious of that, and they wouldn't, like, for example, they wouldn't do emails at home, or they wouldn't do work at home. And if they needed more time for a project, they would just say, like, I can't get the project done in an hour, so it's going to take 2 hours, and that's fine. Whereas for me, I was more, I'm new, this is my first job, I've only been here for 2 months, I'm going to do emails at home, I'm going to do work at home if I need to, I'm going to fit it into these hours, and if I have to work like unbilled hours for the client, I would still be getting paid my salary. But if I have to work extra to get some stuff done, I'm going to do it. So part of that falls on me, but I would caution new employees to the workplace to be very, very cognizant of what your limits are and to not burn yourself out, because once that happens, you start to lose enthusiasm, your quality goes down. It's not necessarily a good situation to recognize it. You can stop it. I was known to do emails well into the night, which is like, like past midnight or something. It was crazy. I would not recommend taking email home if possible, especially as a new sort of person into the workforce. It's really not that necessary. And it's one of the things that, yeah, like if you have email on your phone, you can check it within 5 seconds, see that you don't have anything, see that you do have something, maybe you don't need to respond to it, but you can read it. It all adds up. So I would recommend definitely, like, don't take your email home. There's exceptions, but definitely be cognizant of working at home beyond what you're supposed to be working.
Right. I think that's a really good tip. And also, to, like you're saying, understanding the company culture of maybe what you're getting yourself into, and balancing that, some like boot camp, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're going to suffer a little bit, and maybe that's worth it. But to have a sense of, okay, I may not do this forever, like you ran that for a year, and learned a ton, and then we're ready to move on. And I'm sure that I'm sure that's a well-trodden path. But
Yes.
people love it. I mean, for me, I really like working with different types of clients and all the different challenges, and it keeps things fresh for me. But I do hear you when it's like, okay, no, wait, what was I supposed to do for them? Or somebody emailed me about
Right.
this, and has that changed? And it can be hard to juggle all those different factors. And somebody asked for this, and who was that again?
Right.
I think for me, it comes down to like being super, super organized and taking really good notes. But I don't have, I don't have that many clients, so it's not too overwhelming. But yeah,
Right.
I think that's an excellent tip, and to make sure that you're taking the time to take care of yourself, eat right, exercise.
Oh, for sure. Yes. It's yeah, and like you said, some people might enjoy the agency world. It kind of depends. Like, you're going to work hard anywhere, so that, like, work hard, play hard isn't really it's not a differentiator, I feel, but a lot of agencies say it. But like, if you like working with a lot of different clients and you like that variety in your day, then like the agency world is perfect for you. If you prefer the narrower focus to really delve into one company and one message, then in-house is probably the better route for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if you weren't doing SEO and what you're doing, what are some other options that you would be interested in?
Well, this is yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because as I've been saying, SEO is so broad that, like, I've fallen in love with it. So I don't actually know what I would be doing outside of SEO. I mean, the answer would probably go back to, like, I'd probably be working in book publishing, doing public relations or something to that effect. But that's not that big of a jump from what I'm doing now. So, like, you kind of know if you love your field. I feel like, and this is something that I love. So I don't. Public relations for a book publisher would probably be my answer, but it's hard to say.
Yeah. What's an average day like for you at your current position?
The average day. So I typically spend out my morning researching any industry news. So this is something that I realized was valuable with my first position, actually, because Top Rank runs a very well-respected industry blog. So I had that resource available. And of course, the CEO is posting new content every day. So being the good soldier I was, I would read it. And it ended up being a really good practice to get into, because one of the most helpful things you can do is spend time learning about your industry, especially early on in your career, because you're just not going to know the same things, and you're not going to be able to learn everything from researching, because some of it comes with just experience. But if you can spend an hour a day researching, just news and what's happening in your industry, even old news, so you can kind of see where the industry came from and what happened maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, you're going to be well positioned in the future to really go after those roles that require more experience, because you'll be able to talk about the things that experience typically will give you if you're researching every day. So typically I start off reading a couple industry blogs. Search Engine Watch is my favorite. Search Engine Land is another one that I read. Search Engine Journal sometimes. But that's typically where I keep up with my news. I spend some time on Twitter seeing what the digital marketing folks are talking about. On Fridays, I watch the Whiteboard Friday by Rand Fishkin at Moz. So that's a very helpful sort of video if you want to watch that if you're interested in the marketing space. So that's typically how I start my day, and then I start to dig into the analytics and the data. We use Google Analytics with Power Objects, which is a free analytics platform, and it's very, very robust for such a free for a free platform. So I spend about anywhere, it depends on the day, but I spend a fair chunk of the day looking at the data, seeing what did traffic drop off, did traffic perform well versus last week or last year, last month, that kind of stuff. How many conversions did we get? So conversion, when you're sort of new to the digital marketing space, you want to think about the metrics that you're looking at. One that people typically gravitate to is traffic, that's fine. You can look at traffic. Like, it's important to know if you're growing your footprint. But I think more impactful is the conversion number. And this could be any goal that you set up for your website. So for Power Objects, we basically define a conversion as a lead that comes through the website. And that's pretty typical. For e-commerce, you might do a sale, you might do newsletter signups or blog subscriptions, that type of thing. Anything that kind of drives the key performance indicators of your business and kind of what the executives say that they want to look at. So I spent some time sort of digging into that, seeing if there's anything interesting that's happened or not. And then from there, it really depends on the day. So some days I'll spend time doing paid social promotion, which is a new kind of tactic that I'm learning. You can use it really well to get some quick learns about your messaging and your audience, which is a difficult thing to do. But if you just pay for the impressions and the clicks, you start to find out who resonates with what and how they resonate. So I do some paid social advertising.
What would be an example of that?
Yeah, so I just started doing this a couple of weeks ago, but I think a great example is finding out. So if you have a blog post, for example, and maybe it's the top 10 things you didn't know about marketing, and you don't know quite how to message it to people that are interested. You don't know how to push it out necessarily on social, outreach it to people. So if you just take $10 on Facebook, and you develop maybe 4 different social ads using different words. So you might do like an action-oriented, learn the 10 things you know about marketing. Mm-hmm. You might do more of like a link bait, clickbait type deal, which is like, you won't believe these 10 things that you didn't know, kind of BuzzFeed type stuff. You might find out that branded messaging works best. So, like if I had, a very well-established personal brand, you might find out that like Steven Zahurones' 10 things you didn't know about marketing. You might find that plays well. I guess those are probably the 3 big ones that I think I typically do. But then you'll find out things like based on impressions and clicks on who's clicking on your social ad. You'll find out things, what are their interests? You'll find out where their location is. You'll find out demographic data, so age, male, female, that type of thing. You can really dig into the interest aspect of things, which I think is very important. I think it's something that a lot of people miss out on. It helps you understand your audience a lot. So if I find out that the people that prefer the branded ad also really like movies and music, well, I can start to incorporate that into other content pieces that I do then, because I know that they resonate with that interest that says right on their social, right? So if I incorporate that, they're more likely to come back to me and they're more likely to resonate with my content. So that's really how I've been starting to use that. That's one aspect of my day. And then the other aspect is kind of like just like on-page sort of SEO analysis. We're spending a lot of time trying to drive people right now to a particular section of the website. So it's keyword research. How are people searching for a certain topic? And then what are the variants of that keyword that they're using? So a lot of people that are new to SEO or very old school will tell you like, you need this specific keyword and you should track it and you should look at it. I don't buy that at all. I actually don't track keyword rankings at all anymore, which is something that a lot of SEOs would tell me I'm crazy for. But
yeah, meaning you're not looking to see like, okay, we ranked first for this and third for that.
Right. Yeah. So I don't care on a particular day if we rank, or a particular week if we rank 1 for maybe dynamic CRM training and 3 for dynamic CRM events or something. It's just not, and then we fluctuate, right? Because there's fluctuation that happens. And in addition to that, like going back to the research phase of things, I know that the SEO and digital marketing space is changing quickly, and that unique searches are more than, like the 1 or 2 word searches, even 3 word searches that people typically do. So tracking that, like for example, we'll use CRM training.
Mhm.
Like there are 100, probably thousands of variants and different ways people could search for that, and different questions that they could ask around CRM training that you could be ranking for, but you would have no visibility into that if you're just tracking CRM training. It doesn't give you any topical sort of a look at how you're doing in the actual space, in the topic space. So I don't track that, but I do spend some time figuring out like what are the different ways people might type for this and the questions that people ask, and then developing content to either answer that questions or adding it to existing copies. So that's kind of my day. A lot of data analysis, strategy, and then on-page optimization. I think one other piece that I didn't mention, from the data analysis, then this is one of the most important things you can do if you're in college. I'm not even kidding. Like you should probably master Excel. And I'm like, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, if somebody told me, to master Excel when I was in college, I would have thought like, you're crazy. It's not. No, that's not anything. Yeah, like I don't want to spend my time doing that. It is very, very valuable because there's a lot of people. It's just not a very common skill set. Like a mastery of Excel is not super common, but it's so valuable because the amount of data that companies can get about their performance on the web, and then actually making that presentable, is a skill set that is super valuable because the executives want to see the data and they want it to be presentable. And if it's presentable, you can develop key insights that will drive your business forward. And you can do all of this with Excel. So master it. Learn things like VLOOKUP, pivot tables are super helpful. Really master the different types of graphs and everything you can do with a graph, because executives love graphs and they're great. They're fantastic. So I guess those would be like the 3 starting points that I would do if you're going to master Excel, but there's so much you can do with it. It's so valuable.
Yeah. And was there a class you think that you could have taken that would have given you those skills, or how did you acquire them?
Well, so my skills just came from working in Excel. I had a really awesome boss at Collegius, and he was an Excel master, so he taught me a lot. But I did have the opportunity. There's a tutoring program, like an online tutoring program. It's called Linda. I'm pretty sure it's available to most universities, but they actually have a really deep Excel course that I should have taken, but I didn't. But if you're in college, you should take it. Or if you just graduated, you should take it and learn these things. They're important.
Yeah, definitely. And then what are some of the tools that you use when you are trying to figure out, what you're going to focus on for your SEO?
Yeah, I think so. The data analysis part is key. So Google Analytics, really using that, and there's so much stuff you could do with it. I can't even like we could figure out for our training events that people in California really love them, in particular in the San Francisco area. So maybe we should do a training out there. Like you can get really, really granular, and we could even additionally, you could figure out like females in particular age groups. So then you could target to that. So Google Analytics and looking at the data is one. There are a couple really valuable SEO tools out there that are pretty inexpensive. Screaming Frog is a SEO crawler, and we didn't talk too much about the technical aspect of SEO here, but those are the things like, are your 301 redirects implemented correctly, which is just telling search engines that the page no longer exists and you should send, so the search engine should go to that page, but it also sends users to the new page. There are all kinds of SEO benefits with this, saving link equity to the new page, etc. So Scream Frog is one.
User experience, right? Google doesn't want its users to go someplace that the content isn't there.
Right. So that's why I kind of shied away a little bit from talking about the technical aspect of things, because it's really all you want to think about is provide the best user experience possible. And if you're doing that, then you'll do well in search, provided like your content is still on topic and kind of those basic steps. But if you're providing good user experience, you'll do well in search and you'll gain the other SEO signals like social shares and links that are valuable. But yeah, Screaming Frog is one. That'll crawl your site and tell you all the different crawl errors. It'll tell you if you have duplicate content, which is a big problem because a lot of webmasters don't even necessarily realize they have duplicate content sometimes. So you could have the like the HTTP version of your website and the HTTPS version. And if you don't have those canonicalized correctly, you could end up with a duplicate content issue. And Google doesn't like that because they think you're trying to game the system. So you can implement some code on your website telling them which one you prefer. So that would be Screaming Frog. Another one that I use, it's a paid one. It's pretty, it's an enterprise SEO platform called LinkDex. As far as enterprise SEO platforms go, it's pretty cost efficient, but it is an SEO platform, enterprise level. So it is, it's going to be an investment, but this will help you with a lot of things like, we talked a little bit about outreach, but really finding the targets of who will share your content and who will talk about your content. They have a really awesome tool called Entity Search, which will allow you to do that on a keyword and domain level. So I can find out who on New York Times writes about dynamic CRM, for example, if I wanted to. And then you get a whole list of outreach targets, which you could then either outreach to or target via paid social promotion, which like you could do both actually, and probably they're going to see you a bunch of times. It's going to work very well.
Get up to whole, what is it, like you need 8 impressions before you
get
action?
Yeah, it's all about the impressions, right? Like that also improves brand recall. There's a whole host of so basically any way you can outreach to a person, you should try to do it. LinkDex will also help you if you're interested in tracking specific keyword rankings. It will do that. They will also open up their entire keyword vault. So on the back end, they've got some like 60 million plus keywords in the platform from all the different clients they have and everything that they track. And you can see against that data set how your visibility is doing. The other aspect, it also allows you to do link data to see who's linking to you, and then who's linking to those people. So you can try to, again, develop some more outreach, get some more links to help your SEO. So that's another one that I use. So Screaming Frog and LinkDex are probably the main ones. I'm also sometimes in Google Webmaster Tools, but if you're new to SEO or digital marketing and your boss tells you to pull some data out of Google Webmaster Tools, you should very much caution them that that data is often incomplete and sometimes inaccurate, and it also doesn't update, sort of in real time. There's like a time lag there. So I don't necessarily trust it that much, but we do use it on occasion. And I think that's probably about it on the daily. Like I use the Facebook ad platform, but in terms of SEO tools, it's just really Screaming Frog, LinkDex, and then looking at my data in Google Analytics.
Cool. That's really good. So any other skills that you think that students would have? You mentioned Excel. What else can a new employee bring to the table that you would find valuable?
Right. So it's very important, like I said, to research your field to figure out what you could do. But if you're looking to get into SEO, if you're looking to get into any working, any role across an organization, this is something that I developed at Collegius, but it's very, very important to sort of develop how you think about talking to people and presenting the deliverables that somebody asks for, and being very, very deliberative and clear about what you're saying and what you're presenting. So with Collegius, I learned that it's very, very important to have that sort of like deliberative skill is kind of what I've called it. And a good example of this would be if you're working on a project and somebody asks you, they want to know how well their brand messaging is resonating with the people online. That's a really broad question. And so really pushing back and trying to develop the necessary thinking around like being specific. So what they're really asking is, does this particular piece of messaging, maybe it's an image, maybe it's a headline, resonate with a particular segment of our audience? So you really want to get to being as specific as possible with everything you're saying and everything you're presenting. That was something that I didn't learn quickly enough at top rank. And I think like it's super valuable. The executives that you'll talk to and you'll interact with, if you get to do that, or even just your boss, will appreciate and get much better work out of you if you're being specific and sort of prodding them to ask the specific questions, because a lot of time the executives just don't have time to think that way. Like they just want to know something really quick and they know what they want, so they ask it, and then you're kind of left with kind of like interpreting, and then that's where you can get into trouble. So really thinking deliberatively and as specific as possible is an important skill. And I don't really have any helpful tips for developing that, except for just sort of like being conscious about, is this as specific as this question can be asked? And if not, then figuring out how to ask it. That's a skill set that takes time to develop, of course, but super helpful to be cognizant of. And then Excel, of course. And then if you can learn any of the analytics platforms, like Google Analytics is free, so you can learn it. There's all kinds of Google provides learning materials for everybody because they have a Google Analytics certification exam, and they give like education for that, so you can study and pass it. Learning that platform is super valuable. This is, again, it's not a skill that everybody has, to be able to really, really leverage it as much as you can. So learning Google Analytics is free, and it's time consuming, but it's very worth it, especially if you can put on your resume that, hey, like I can actually analyze this data for you and provide you some actionable insights. So Excel is one, Google Analytics is another, and then thinking about being deliberative and specific in your workplace communication is another. Oh, and this other one is, I find this a lot with new people in the workforce. Be very, very cognizant of sort of bringing your personal life into the workplace. Like it's something that I struggled with myself when I first got into the workforce. I've seen numerous people struggle with it when they first start out in the workplace. No matter how, like, it's kind of a struggle to say this, but no matter how much everybody at your workplace feels like they're your friend, they are your coworker. So be very, very cognizant of that fact. You can get in trouble very quickly if you're bringing too much of your personal life into the workplace. That's not to say, right, like you can't have camaraderie with your coworkers, but it's different than, because I think what probably happens is in college, you get used to work projects and you get used to classes, and it's all very much like a friendship-based just experience. And so it's a lot different in the workforce. You can't bring that same type of thinking into the workplace. And that's not to say you can't have fun and be like, friends with your coworkers, but they're your coworkers first.
Right. That's a really excellent point. And it doesn't mean that, like you said, you can't be friends with those people, but you are friends with them because you work together. Like, would you be friends with that person if you saw them on the street? Like, no, probably not. And
Right.
ultimately, in a lot of cases, especially if you're in a competitive environment, I mean, you are in a competitive environment even if you don't know it, right? And
Yes.
You never know when some information might be used against you, or somebody, you offend someone. Just everybody. I think that's what's a little bit different than college, right? Is that most everybody is young. And when you start getting into a work environment, it's mixed community. There's people with kids. There's people, with kids in college, and not everybody has the same perspective. And I think that's a really key tip to give out.
Yes. I can't stress that. It's so important to remember. And even with your because a lot of agencies and even companies will do outside of work activities. They're not really outside of work. Like you're still with your work people. So like, I've seen it before where like you go to a happy hour with some of your coworkers, and that's a happy hour. So you get, it's like happy time.
Right.
No, but these are still your coworkers. They're still your coworkers. Be careful.
Yeah.
Because as you said, you're in a competitive environment. So I don't care what anybody tells you. There's politics in any workplace. That's just the fact of life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's also important too, like develop friendships outside of work, especially, even if you move to a new place. Let's say, you get this great job offer someplace halfway across the country, you don't know anybody. There's different clubs, there's different groups. Go on a meetup, find, the people who like wine and dogs and go hang out with them. And, it might take a few tries, but It'd also be good for networking too, because if your whole circle is centered on where you work and you decide, I don't want to work there anymore, then your whole social circle fades away, and that can really inhibit your career growth as well. I have a friend, oh, did we talk about this? My friend who is an economist who says that however much you're making when you're 40, you're going to peak out.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did.
40s, and then it slides down.
Yep. That's a sad thing that he said, but maybe it's true. I don't know. Well, that brings up a good point is, I was talking earlier about when you're young in your career, you're learning quickly. So your value increases super quickly. So a lot of times what you'll find, and, this has been the case for many, many people that I know, is when you get an entry level position, sometimes the salary is a little bit lower than maybe obviously if you have a job for that requires 2 years experience, the salary is going to be more, right? But when you get an entry level position, your salary is lower because it's entry level, but then that company typically isn't going to pay you the salary increase that the 1 year of experience merits or the 2 years of experience merits. So especially when you're young and starting out your career, this goes back to the loyalty aspect that I was talking about. I feel like it's very important to understand that your value is growing super quickly and it's likely to outpace what your first company is willing to pay you. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing to maybe get an offer for more salary and to take it, provided the company culture and all that stuff is a fit too. But it's sure. There's not necessarily a price, I feel, on loyalty until you get to a certain level, right? Once you get the 2 to 3 years of experience, those big salary bumps that you get from year 1 to 2, they don't happen as often. Right. So if you can maximize your value in the first 2 years, you're in a much better position later on than if you were to say well, I really love my company and I want to stay loyal forever. That's fantastic too. If you do, that's your decision. Right. I'm just explain you can probably maximize your value. If money is important to you, you can maximize your value outside of the company by looking elsewhere, probably in most cases by looking elsewhere in the first year or two of your career. And then you also talked about networking, which is another thing that I forgot to mention. But if you can find a mentor, this is fantastic. So I've been able to have sort of a mentor relationship with one of my old coworkers from Collegius. She was at the executive level. I think she was maybe the VP of marketing. But again, if this is a relationship that you can develop and then leverage over time, you can bounce ideas off these people. These people have been around for a long time. When I was at Search Love, Suzanne, you were there, and talking to other people who've been in the field for a while, you can get a feel and a sense for how these people talk and the ideas that they enjoy. So finding a mentor in your networking is super valuable. It's one of the best. I learned so much. Her name's Marie. I've learned so much from Marie and had some great opportunities just from sort of asking her, what do you think of this? And want to meet up for coffee? And then we meet up for coffee, and it's just a great time. So if you can find a mentor, that's super valuable, especially starting out in your career, because they're going to care about your development and they're going to care about guiding you because you're new and you're young and you can be impressionable.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, but there's reading some gamification books, and it's sort of when you become a parent, you are have a child, become a parent, not become a parent.
Right.
But there's this experience that you have where you gain pride from your child's success, and that translates as a mentor, right? That same feeling, that same sense of, wow, you did really great. So for example, I interviewed my former student who is the director of content for the Instagram Expert. And when she contacted me on Twitter after Social Media Marketing World and was like, oh, I can't believe we were there. We didn't get a chance to meet up. And I had no idea what she was doing. And when I looked at her bio, I was so pumped. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And I'm still pumped, and so that as a mentor is really key. And I actually hadn't connected with her in 2 years. And it sort of made sense why teachers still do it when they're underpaid and undervalued and, all the other things that are wrong about, the institution of education. But that feeling of, wow, someone I have helped is doing really well and I played a part in that is pretty powerful. So I think, to your point, like, don't be afraid to approach someone to be your mentor. And you know, it might not work out. You know, you may have to try some different people out, and people at different points in their lives. Maybe the timing's not right, but one of my mentors was my first boss at the first newspaper I worked at, and he has been great. And you know, we usually get together only like once a year, but it's just fun to reconnect and, you know, hear what he's doing. And you know, it was the newspaper world. And so when I was starting my business, we got together more often because I was helping him. It was reverse mentoring because I had a lot of information about online marketing, digital marketing, and how that would impact his company, and fun to do it that way too. So if you're starting out and you're looking for a mentor, you may have the opportunity to give back and become the reverse mentor too.
Yes, that's true. Yes. So if somebody wants a mentor and they would like to speak to me, they can do that. I'm very open to that idea.
Nice. That's great. No, that's really great to know because I would love to mentor more. It's just I have a pretty demanding boss and my 2-year-old.
Right. Well, you know, your 2-year-old, that's...
I'm on a short leash.
Yeah, I imagine it's tough.
Yeah. But yeah, well, and I know that you have a lot to get done today. So any final thoughts? I know we covered a lot and so much great information.
Yeah, no, I think we probably covered everything. But again, don't be afraid to reach out. I'm pretty approachable on Twitter, especially. So anywhere you want to reach out and talk, I'm always open.
Okay, and you are on Google Plus. So
I am on Google Plus. I'm everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Steven. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Suzanne.
Okay, and hope to connect in person soon.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Take care.
Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.